Hi, this is Baruch here at the Tikkun Elevator Call Out. So I'm still working in Baruch Hashem. So I'm trying to make time to be able to continue on in the concept of Nesira. Arguably, one of the most important, could be possibly the most important basic concept that we need to understand because our existence and our blessing depends on it. So I think that where we're at right now is on this number Zion. We're just going to pick up the Tivakabanos and start reading. B'yomim shebein Rosh Hashanah the Yom Kippurim. So those 10 days between that time. Shehem B'saras Yemei Tshuva, which are the 10 days of Tshuva. Omdim Zer Anpin B'nuk B'bechinas Ach Ba'ach. They are not mating. As we said before, that the mating takes place, the actual coupling of Zohar B'nuk, that is the wedding of opposites. It has to be on a face-to-face basis. You have to be able to see there's something going on there that draws them. So bebechinas ach ba'ach kasher nuk omedes ba'ach zer anpin. She's standing now in the back of zer anpin. U'bagas et chetzi kumasu, and she reaches to half of his height. The height of the chazer at siyam raglov, that he goes from the chazer. She is from the chazer down to the end of his feet. In other words, they're both standing on the same carcass, so to speak. So he says, Indian the Shira Yet Bahakamba Vakamba, and there's lots of different ways that this takes place. Kafishi is Borlachalon Smoke. Now, I'm not sure exactly what it's going to say, but this concept of the Nesira's concept is happening every day. It's happening in every Shmona Esrei. So it's happening. Let's see what goes on. And because of the fact that it's coming in many different ways, she's not always she's not able to stand in the front of Zeranpin. She is stimul called prate va'ofanech until all of the details and all of the different ways in which the Nesira takes place are finished. This takes place during these 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim. Yeshnam shtei drachim ketzad meiser zah as hadinim shebesochel el lanok. So he says, now this is really, really important for me. I really want to hear this. How in fact it is that Zah gives over his dinim to the Nuk. There are two different ways. Kedei la'asos es and Nesira. And this has to be that all of his dinim go to her, and then she becomes independent. She becomes what she is, his opposite. I just have to contemplate this, because before this, she really wasn't his opposite. Well, she could have been, but she was attached to him. They were the same being. She was a back, he was a front. But once she becomes independent, that means that her 10 spheros count in the same sense that the 10 spheros is their anpin count, but her spheros are all gavuros at this point. So he says we need to know that low parts of Nuk omedes ba'ach Zah, she's in the back of Zah. Kusha komaza megas rak adachazed Zah, but her height is shorter than his. She only reaches to his chest. Behind Adchetzi Kumaza, that is until she reaches that. We call that the half of the height of Zah. But Nimsa Shazak Batzark the says law as Hadinem and Nimsaim Bechetzi Atachton. So since she comes, we say more or less that she stands between his upper half and his lower half. So therefore everything on the lower half has to go to her. Shishama met his note, because that's where it is. So whatever's inside of him at that point has to go to her. Amnam called Zerav Hurakashan is Yaches Lefi Hamakum Shisham Omedis Nook. That's only in relationship to the place where the Nook is located. Akasha Nechshav Lefi Cheshbon Spheros. But then let's count a different way. He has 10 spheros, she has 10 spheros. She's shorter than him, but how about spherot to spherot? So he said, on the sphere, the Kafishi is born. Hold on, we're going to see this. Yishtana Inyan. So then, if he's going to go from the halfway mark, we have to figure out what he means by the halfway mark, but the halfway mark, going downwards, you could see that you're just going to transfer over to her. Everything that he has that are dinim is going to go over to her. And since where she starts is at her, where she starts is her kesser. So therefore, whatever's in the top of the lower half is going to go over to her Kesser, and the other 10, they'll go straight down. They're all going to go into that. Now, that's a way of transferring. But he says there's another way of transferring, and that's by way of the names of the Spiros themselves. Kesser, the Kesser, Chochma, the Chochma, like that. Now, I don't know how this works exactly. It's not like I haven't seen it before, but I sure never really understood it real well. So he says, the first way to look at it is we go according to the count, below the makom, and it doesn't have to do with the place. Behind the she'eser sphere she'esh bazal, so I try to understand it, and this is what he's saying. He says that the 10 spheres is their anpin, the sphere shalom no yesh leish no, because he has 10, she has 10. V'chadin is bekeser dezal, v'choka bekeser denoka, the dinner and the keser dezal go to her keser. And that's how her keser gets built. V'chadin is bechochma dezal, cholchim lo chochma denok. V'chein kol the dinner should be called kumas their anpin. So the entire height is their anpin. It's keser to keser, chochma the chochma, all the way down to malchus the malchus. Holchim the sphere of the hainu, missphere shall zel, the sphere shall nok. So it goes with the sphere of the name keser, for example, to the sphere of keser, the nok below me parak the parak, below me parak the sphere. But he said, but that's the way. That's one way. But it doesn't go from a parak. I have to figure out what a parak means to a sphera. As our dinim shall call kumas their anpin, and this is the way that she receives all of the dinim from their anpin. 1 minute. I got something here. I got it here towards the store. Okay, I'm back. Now, all I got to do is figure out where I was. Okay, so I think we're like, let's go over here on number Yud Aleph. So it says, now how's the second one work? Now, he said he's called what? Parak the Sphira. So he says, Ba'ofen Acher, it really works in a different way altogether. Zahuhu al direction is bar be'etz chaim. The Etz Chaim explains this. He says, where is the Shara Mochim Perak base? Okay, so it says the Shara Keser, the Nuk. So let's talk about the Keser, the Nuk. Omed keneged shnei shlishi tachtoni the Teferes Dezah. Now let's try to locate this and try to understand what he's saying. Once again, we said that the Keser of the Nuk is across from the Chaz of Zer Anpin. So he says that V'hu al derek she is bar be'etz chaim. Shechar keser the nuk is really not opposite the keser of Zer Anpin, right? She's really opposite the teferes of Zer Anpin. Omed keneged shnei shlishim tachtonin the teferes dezah. She says that her keser is in the lower 2/3 of the teferes dezah. So what the teferes of Zer Anpin? Zer Anpin is the male, right? He's on the inside. She's on the outside. So she's standing at his chest. For the chest going downwards is where she's standing. So what is it? It's from his chest, which is the beginning of the lower 2/3. Because we're deciding to chop Zer Anpin, his body, that is his teferes, into 3/3. Now this is not the only place where we see this concept, but it is a concept. So he says, so what happens is that she's really not corresponding. Her keser is not next to his keser. Her keser is next to the lower 2/3 of his teferes. V'teisha spheres hachma v'bina chagat nehim denuk. So let's talk about this. The 10 spheres, which he says is chachma. I guess it's keser. These 9 spheres. Chachma bina. That's Chochma Bina, right? Those are the Mochim. And then you have Chagat Nehem. That's 7. That's 2 and 7 is 9. The Nuk, Omdim Neged Shlosh Spheres 9. This is really, really important. So she's not the same height as he is. 9 means his hips and his Yisod. And so therefore that's where she gets that Shefa. So he says those spheros get the shefa from that place. If the nymph says she call us spiritual parts of no. So it comes out that all the spheros that come from the parts of the Nook, those bechetzi tachton, the zer anpin, so that the whole Nook, so this part, let me say, Nimsa Shekol spiritual parts of Nook. Those bechetzi tachton, the zer anpin. He calls this the second, the lower half. That's very interesting. Just think about the body of zer anpin. And you will say that it starts at his neck, let's say. Those his shoulders are really part of his arms, and the arms are part of the body. So let's say that's where it starts. So he says like this, that part is considered to be one half. What? What part is that? That's the part from the shoulders, the arms, down to the chest. That part is considered to be a half in this language. And the other part, which is really 2/3 of the body of Zer Anpin, is considered to be the other half. Now, how that is, I'm not sure exactly, but we're not dealing with this world. So we're dealing with Zer Anpin. So we have to see how he fits together. So that is at least in relationship to his nukva. The Haino Mishtei Shlishi Achroni de Teferis, and now he says the second half is called the second Tetu Shlishi, which is from the Chazal Lamata. Shasham Nimsach HaChazal de Zer Anpin Ad Siyam Raglov. That's where you find the Chazal Zer Anpin, excuse me, Ad Siyam Raglov, until the bottom of his feet. Now let's see if we can learn a little bit more here. Let me see, where is Yud Beis? Yud Beis is up here. I'm going to do Yud Beis and Yud Gimel, hopefully. Let's see how we can do it. That was a big piece of information for me. So we had two different ways of, maybe we're going to conclude here. Maybe this is enough. That the concept here is you have two different ways in which the Gevuros as their Anpin can be thought about or talked about in terms of how they transfer into the No. One is Kasser de Kasser, Chochma de Chochma, just like that. The names correspond. So there's something to that thought that just has to be developed a little bit. Exactly what does that mean? What does it mean to have the names, and how does that work? The other one is a different view. The other one is a view where she's actually at. She's not really corresponding to his Kasser. So therefore, the Shefet that she gets, really all of the Shefet that she gets, is from the body of Zer Anpin, and particularly from the lower 2/3 of Zer Anpin, which we call also by the name of the lower half. This is Baruch Fleischman, and that's a shear in the Nesira. This is pure, pure Sod. Thanks for learning.